Hi everybody and welcome back to Murder at Bedtime. As you know by now, if you are a returning viewer, I think you are all awesome. And if this is your first time, then I hope I can persuade you to come back again. Now, I know you're all very upset that it's just me again this time, but I'm sure Keita can be press ganged into appearing again very soon. Now, before I start, this is a 15 to 20 minute true crime bedtime story. No frills, waffle free. If there is any waffle, it will always be at the very end of the story. So before I start today's episode, I think I do need to start off with a little bit of waffle. I do apologise because in this episode I have decided to go all Danish on you. And I'm going to tell you two stories of two murderesses from the lovely country of Denmark. So firstly, I have no idea how to pronounce some of the place names and establishments, etc. in Danish. So I really do apologise to the lovely people of Denmark for massacring your language. Secondly, why Denmark? Well, I came upon these two crimes by chance and they really interested me. So I thought you might find them interesting too. There isn't massive information about them, so that's why I've done them both together. And lastly, these are two stories about multiple child murders. So please, if that may upset you, just give this one a miss. And with that, let's crack on with firstly the story of Anna Katarina Andersdatter. Now I've searched online and even the Danish websites don't really know anything about Anna until she reaches the age of 23. That is apart from the fact that she was born in Karabakh in Denmark on the 20th of October 1829. So at the age of 23, Anna is working on a farm where she becomes pregnant by a fellow worker. He, however, makes it abundantly clear that he is not interested in looking after her or her unborn child, and before the birth, he skedaddles back to his native Sweden. Anna gives birth to her daughter at a place whose name I am not even going to attempt, but translated into English means maternity and caring institution, which was groundbreaking in those times in Copenhagen, being created for pregnant women to give birth anonymously and receive free medical care. It was founded for the welfare of these women, mostly who were unmarried and had been abandoned by the child's father. It was also to avoid infanticide, which happened on a regular basis in these times. Apparently, in Denmark in the mid-1800s, a man could make a woman pregnant, and as long as he was prepared to swear an oath that the child was not his word would be taken. This led to a lot of destitute single mothers who took the choice of either ending their own life or the child's, or both. So after her daughter was born in this institution in Copenhagen, Anna decides to walk to a place called Ringsted, where she intended to put her baby up for adoption. Near Vingerslev, the baby was crying, so she sat down by a ditch and started to feed her daughter. As she did so, she looked around the quiet, tranquil spot she had stopped at, and it suddenly dawned on her, if she put her baby into the ditch and held her head under the icy water, it would save her a lot of trouble. And sadly, this was exactly what she did. She then dug a small grave with her bare hands and buried the baby girl. Her body was never found. Fast forward 2 years and Anna is now working on a farm in Ramsø, and once again she falls pregnant to a fellow worker, this time one who is already married. So this doesn't look like it's going to have a happy ever after either, and it didn't. The father on this occasion making it angrily clear that he wanted nothing to do with her or the child. Now, I'm assuming now that Anna leaves that employment and has her baby somewhere else, but I can't find where, but I don't think it was the institute in Copenhagen this time. Anyway, this time she gives birth to a baby boy on the 3rd of April 1855. She had already acquired a new position which started in 3 weeks, which would leave her with no one to look after the baby. She first decided to travel back to see the father of the child and appeal to his better nature. But when she arrived back at the farm, she got cold feet, remembering the last time that they had spoken and his aggressive anger towards her. She turned around and walked away without seeing him. On her way back, she passed a well at a crossroads that she had seen on her way to the farm. With a quick glance around and seeing if the coast was clear, she tossed the baby boy into the well and carried on walking. The baby's body was found a month later, but due to no evidence and no witnesses, the case was quickly closed. In 1856, Anna once again became pregnant and once again to a co-worker, but this time he took responsibility for the child. And when the baby was born, he took the child to his mother's for her to look after him. So the boy was brought up by his grandmother. A very, very lucky boy indeed. But when in 1861 Anna became pregnant again by the same man, for some reason she didn't tell him. And under the pretext that she was going to visit her sick mother in Karlsbad on the 1st of February, she once again travelled to the, and I'm going to make an effort at the pronunciation this time, Fodelstilfelsen Institute in Copenhagen, where she was assigned by them to a family in Borgograd to care for her during and after the birth. On the 15th of February, she gave birth to a baby boy. At the beginning of March, Anna told the family in Borgårdsgård that her mother had sent word that she had found a family in her home village of Karlsbad who would adopt the boy. This, of course, was untrue. Anna had already decided that she was going to dispose of this baby too. Firstly, she headed to Frederiksberg Gardens, where she planned to drown him in one of the canals. But there were too many people about, so next she tried Damhus Lake, but once again it was too crowded. It was then that she remembered the well by the crossroads that she had used to kill her second child all those years before. When she thought she wouldn't be spotted, threw the baby boy into the well. She then made her way back to the family she was staying with in Borgårdsgård and told them the child was now safely with his new parents. But this time Anna Andersdatter's luck had run out. Too many people had seen her snooping around the well. So when the body of the child was found on the 30th of March, she was quickly found and arrested. She immediately made a full confession and added that she had also murdered 2 previous children. At her trial, 8 of the 10 Supreme Justices wanted to pardon her due to the fact she was a poor single mother servant girl, unable to properly care for her children, had a good employment record, and she had repented and found faith. It was refused, probably to appease the public who were outraged by the crimes, and she was sentenced to death by beheading. On a cold, misty morning on the 21st of December 1861, Anna Andersdatter calmly climbed the steps to the scaffold, said a little prayer, removed her neck scarf and laid her neck on the block. And with one expert blow of his axe, the executioner separated her head from her body. So what do you think of that one? Well, I started off with a little bit of sympathy for her, and then it gradually drained away. I wasn't particularly surprised by the death sentence, even though it was very rare to execute women in Denmark, even in those days, but I was a bit surprised that they were still beheading people in Denmark in the 1860s. Let me know what you think, because now we move on to a really nasty piece of work. A woman called Dagmar Overbye. She was born in Denmark in 1887. Now, I got my best information on the story from Danish websites, and the translation was a bit, how can I put it, a bit hit and miss, but I hope I've managed to put it into some semblance of order. Dagmar was born in Asentrup, Denmark on the 23rd of April 1887. At the age of 12 she was sent away, I'm presuming to some sort of young offenders institute for stealing, and was returned 3 years later to her parents in Aarhus. In no way rehabilitated, it would seem, as by the age of 22 she was sent to prison once again on theft charges. After being released, she once again returned to Aarhus, where she met and married a waiter from a local restaurant called Anton Peter Nielsen. They had a child together, a boy, who died while Dagmar and the baby were staying with her grandmother in Randers. It is said under suspicious circumstances. This was after Nielsen and herself had split up. In 1912, she meets a man called Jens Sorensen. However, she was already pregnant with another man's baby. When her daughter, Irina, was born, she gave her up for adoption to save Jens from any sort of slander. Then she got pregnant with Jens, but he wanted her to terminate the pregnancy, which she refused. But returning from wherever she gave birth, she threw the baby into a haystack. Now, I'm presuming the child was found and lived, because I can't find anything about its death. After Jens told her he had no intention of ever marrying her, she attempted suicide, and after failing that, she somehow retrieved Irina from her adoptive parents and moved to Copenhagen and opened a sweet shop in Holmbladsgade. And it was there that she met a lighthouse keeper called Svensson. Now, either this story is getting rather bizarre or my translation skills are just rubbish. Lighthouse, who knows? And they had a child together, which also died mysteriously. Dagmar Overbye committed her first known murder at the couple's home in Jägersborgade in 1916. She put an advertisement in the local newspaper selling herself as a sort of adoption agency for unwanted children, who for 12 kroner would take your child off your hands and find a new home for it. Through this advert, a young unmarried mother called Rasmin Jensen made contact with Dagmar, and she met up with her, paid the money and left. On the very same day, Dagmar strangled the child, then threw the body into woodland behind Assistens Kirkegård, which is apparently a huge graveyard in Copenhagen where Hans Christian Andersen is buried. She would later claim she had no idea why she did this. In the following 4 years, Dagmar, who presumably knows exactly why she is doing this now, murders at least 7 babies and probably many more using the same method. The newspaper ad offering adoption, the handing over of the child and the payment, the murdering of the child on the very same day by suffocation, strangulation or drowning, and ending with the poor little child being thrown into the masonry heater. What's a masonry heater, I hear you ask? As did I. And I wish I hadn't, because now I could fill a whole episode on masonry heaters. But basically, it's a very large, heavy ceramic stove that sits in the corner of the house, burning logs and heating the whole house. But it is more cost effective than an ordinary log burning stove. The burnt remains of the children were either buried, hidden in the attic, or shoved into drawers and cupboards, etc. Now, quite what her husband thought of all these remains scattered around the house and what was his involvement in these atrocities, we don't know. And indeed, we never do find out, or if he was convicted of anything. But in 1920, Dagmar Overbye's luck finally ran out when a young mother called Caroline Argerson took her child to Dagmar's home, handed over her baby and the obligatory 12 kroner, and went home. After a sleepless night of soul searching, Caroline had a change of heart, and in the morning she went straight round to Overbye's house to reclaim her baby. Of course, she had, as usual, already murdered and disposed of her baby in the masonry stove. So she gave Caroline the excuse that she had already moved the child on to another family and couldn't remember their address. To a broken-hearted Caroline, this just did not add up. So she went straight to the police. The police went directly to Dagmar's address, where after a search of the now, I'm going to say, lighthouse, but it could just be an adjoining cottage, the skull and tiny remains of Caroline's baby were found in the masonry stove. And as I've already mentioned, remains of other children were found all over the house. Dagmar was arrested and confessed to 16 murders. At her trial, only evidence of 9 murders were brought against her. And after 2 days of highly dramatic and harrowing witness interviews in the Eastern High Court, she was found guilty of all 9 murders and sentenced to death. But as was expected, she was saved from execution as the death sentence in Denmark was on its last legs and the king himself weighed in with, "We do not kill our women in Denmark." But she was to be detained, never to be released, in a, I presume, secure mental facility, and she died in Vestre Fenskel in 1929, aged 42. So what do you think of that? Now, you know me, I normally show a bit of sympathy to murderesses, but I don't think I can in these cases. Multiple child killings just don't sit right with me at all. Anyway, no more waffle from me today. If you want to contact me, please do, either on the Murder at Bedtime with Linden Instagram page or on my email. The link to both are in the descriptions. And I think that's that. So until next time, thank you so much for listening. And I think next time also we may have a bit of waffle at the end, because I do think I've collected quite a lot to tell you. So everybody who listens to Murder at Bedtime with Linden, thank you for carrying on with me and carrying on supporting. Anyway, I'd like to say thank you very much again and see you next time. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.